is that as they're going through the process, they're coming to the point where the radiation, basically decontamination for radiation, other than they've got some of the large components which they're breaking up and then for disposal. Their issues are much hazardous materials and some of the things, asphalt, and other things which, yeah, if we sat here, we'd think about, but they need to deal with. And obviously some of those things, I think, as you noted, are things subject to state regulation, maybe state regulation delegated from EPA or EPA directly, or there may be state environmental issues. I mean, for example, that site, some of the site is being released to, I think, a public parkland alongside. So at one point, those interests. So I think you made a good point. A number of you made a good point on this. The question of our engagement with state and local organizations as we can. One of the things that and I appreciate your comments for anybody who care to respond on this, is there's a theme in some of your comments to us regarding decommissioning regulations, maximizing safety, and minimizing economic impacts, among other things. And also this notion, when we talked about the community engagement boards, about issues, for example, site usage and all that. And here's a place where, if you draw the Venn diagram, where we may have some of that, particularly noted in the radiation area, the remediation area, but some of those things in terms of economic usage, impacts on community, are frankly outside the NRC wheelhouse. And I've gone to places and talked about this, and suddenly I'm the economic redeveloper, which I'm not qualified to do. But could any? I'm not there. There's a question in there somewhere, but my question is really how do we look at that role, which is the NRC role, which is the safe decommissioning, safety and security while that process is going on, with these other things that sort of intersect about future community development, future uses, and all that. Anybody like to respond, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Again, you could full thimble with what I know about this, but it seems that regulations, to the extent that the NRC can assist in assuring that financially that there's adequate funding to decommission and to do it faster, is my main impetus in this. I really don't know and haven't considered the other side of what the wonderful value of keeping a site open for 60 years in mothballs or whatever before that is returned to usefulness. So, that's my input.
Yeah, if I could, the other federal agency that I deal with a lot in my life, while there's not necessarily regulatory oversight in certain areas, there certainly are best practices. And a role that you could play, which would really be a nice, again, facilitative role, is to look at land use relative to nuclear, decommissioned nuclear sites, and say what is working in other areas so that other decommissioning plants and their communities could look at best practices. Everything from retraining workforce to land use to other environmental issues. Almost a playbook, if you will, that's not regulatory. And I understand resources are limited, but if you're asking what could you do to help, there are consistent themes with all of these plants, and yet very often the communities feel like they're in isolation. So you could actually play a really interesting role relative to best practices.
Right. Okay. Yeah, now I was going to say, obviously you preempt the field in the area of radioactive issues. Now, having said that, there's a whole complicated set of issues involved in decommissioning, some of which obviously states have a lot of experience with, other pieces of it, and certainly the economic redevelopment is a piece where, again, and that's certainly very appropriate to have state and local involvement. But again, I think we have to be looking at it as a partnership. Again, realizing you have parts which are really in your wheelhouse, but other areas where you can facilitate the conversation. I think a lot of the process I'm looking forward to is thinking of the Blue Ribbon Commission on how do we deal with long-term waste issues. This is a good chance to put in place sort of a model program here on decommissioning that allows that degree of comfort to move forward on solutions for long-term waste.
Okay. Anybody?
Yeah, just a quick one. I think it's difficult for the NRC in that space because no matter how well you send the message out, at the end of the day, you may be looked upon as the agency preventing that land to be developed for 60 years. So even though your piece is limited, as long as, people are asking, what can we do there next? How can we redevelop this property? But if the rules allow that long a time period, you're still going to be there. But the best advice we have is there can be a lot more communication with the public so they explain exactly who does what. But you're very correct, and those circles are very intertwined and complicated. And you'd be surprised, at least we're surprised daily, on what people think the expectations are from each of the agencies.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I want to thank this panel again for your interesting comments and testimony this morning. And we're going to take, I'll be generous and give us till 11 o'clock, and we'll have our second panel. Thank you again.
Okay.